Caitlin Clark is no stranger to big moments. Known for her explosive skill on the basketball court, she's captivated audiences and gained a reputation as one of college basketball's most intense and charismatic players. But even the unshakable Clark wasn't ready for what went down in a recent interview. A moment so startling that it caught her completely off guard, leaving her speechless in front of a crowd, live cameras rolling. In the world of sports, where athletes thrive on their ability to stay composed and react fast, it takes something truly surprising to stop a star like Clark in her tracks. And this reporter, armed with an unfiltered question, managed to do just that. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Clark had shown up for the interview, fresh off a game, carrying her signature energy, somewhere between the quiet, steely determination of a seasoned competitor and the buoyant thrill of a young player who loves every second of the spotlight. She leaned into the conversation, initially engaging in the usual routine, responding to standard questions about her performance, her team's strategies, and even some casual talk about life outside the game. Clark seemed relaxed, enjoying the back and forth, almost as if the whole interaction was a part of the game itself. Her responses were on point, her demeanor calm but slightly amused, as if she had come to expect, and skillfully dodge, the typical questions reporters throw at her. But this reporter wasn't about to let her sail through the conversation unchallenged. Instead, he decided to veer off script, diving headfirst into a question that would stun her in a way no one anticipated. The look on Clark's face was priceless, a brief flash of shock that made her blink, caught entirely off guard. For a second, she looked almost like a player who had just missed a pass in the middle of an intense play, processing the unexpected shift in front of her. The atmosphere changed, the air seemed to thicken, and you could almost hear an imaginary buzzer go off. It was the kind of moment that stands out in the sea of interviews athletes give, a split second that felt both surreal and strangely exhilarating. While no one would argue against Clark's focus and resilience, even she couldn't conceal the bewilderment on her face. Her eyebrows shot up just a bit, her mouth opened for a second as if to respond. But she stopped herself, pausing with a look that said, "Did I just hear that right?" This wasn't just an ordinary question. It was a direct, unfiltered probe into a part of her life that isn't often addressed in the public eye. Fans and analysts alike had long speculated about Clark's motivations, her intense drive, her passion for the game, but the question forced her to confront it in a way that was unexpected, raw, and surprisingly personal. For those watching, it was as if the veil had been lifted on Clark's famously unflappable composure. She didn't try to mask her reaction. Instead, she seemed to sit with it, taking a beat longer than usual before responding. And that pause, just a few seconds but somehow stretching into what felt like an eternity, became a moment that people would talk about long after the interview ended. For a player known to handle high-pressure situations with ease, who rarely gives anything but her game face, this moment offered a glimpse into a different side of Caitlin Clark. But Clark's silence wasn't just silence. It was packed with the kind of tension that only comes from a real, honest moment. She managed to gather herself, flashing a brief smile, but her eyes revealed a flicker of something deeper, possibly surprise, maybe even vulnerability. She leaned back slightly, hands fiddling with the microphone for a beat before she spoke, carefully choosing her words. The answer she eventually gave was far from rehearsed, tinged with a slight chuckle, a genuine attempt to recover from the surprise. Her response, though measured, reflected the unfiltered personality that had endeared her to fans around the country. It was Clark at her most authentic, a person balancing the intensity of competition with the need to be real, even when the spotlight shone a little too brightly on parts of her she usually kept private. The moment reverberated with the audience. Fans had watched Clark's journey, seen her fierce determination on the court, and her single-minded focus in interviews, but rarely had they seen her in a position of unguarded vulnerability. For some, it added a new layer to their admiration for her. For others, it confirmed what they had long suspected, that Caitlin Clark wasn't just a force in women's basketball, but a person willing to stand in the spotlight without hiding. This wasn't a show of bravado. It was a reminder that even the toughest athletes can be taken by surprise, forced to confront their own narratives in real time. In the days that followed, the internet buzzed with conversation about the interaction, dissecting every frame and replaying Clark's reaction. The incident became a talking point not just in sports circles but among fans who were drawn to her for her relatability as much as for her athletic prowess. Social media exploded with clips of the moment. Meme makers had a field day and fans debated whether the reporter's question was out of line or refreshingly honest. The fact that Clark hadn't shied away from answering, hadn't bristled at the unexpected turn, only fueled the admiration. It was as if, in that split-second silence, she had shared a piece of herself that fans rarely got to see, a raw glimpse into the very human side of a player often cast as invincible. Reporters and analysts tried to break down why this moment had resonated so much with people. It wasn't just the shock factor, it was the way Clark handled it. There was something about her pause, her expression, the hint of laughter in her eventual response that felt entirely relatable. She didn't respond with the polished, guarded language that athletes often fall back on, nor did she brush off the question as irrelevant. Instead, she allowed herself to be real, to feel the moment, to respond with the kind of honesty that only comes when you're willing to let people see you as you are, flaws and all. In hindsight, the moment seems almost inevitable, a collision of a star's rising fame and the intense scrutiny that follows it. For Clark, the interview was a reminder that as her profile grows, so too will the public's curiosity about her life beyond the court. The exchange underscored a simple truth. The higher an athlete climbs, the more people want to understand the why behind their success, the story that drives their journey. Caitlin Clark had shown she could handle that curiosity with grace, humor, and a touch of vulnerability, meeting it not as a chore, but as a part of her evolving narrative. The interview also hinted at the pressures faced by young athletes in the spotlight, the balancing act of maintaining one's identity while constantly being observed and scrutinized. It raised questions about how much of themselves athletes should share, and where the line should be drawn between public persona and private self. For Clark, the moment likely served as a learning experience, a reminder that fame brings with it moments of unpredictability, where composure is as much a part of the game as any on-court skill. And she had handled it in a way that only deepened her connection with fans, many of whom saw in her reaction a bit of their own struggles with vulnerability and honesty. In the days following the interview, Clark resumed her usual routine, diving back into practices, games, and the busy life of a college athlete. But there was a subtle shift, a new layer of admiration from fans who felt they had witnessed something rare, a superstar showing a flash of vulnerability without apology. Her team and coaches continued to speak highly of her, noting the professionalism and resilience she brings to every aspect of her life, on and off the court. Yet the moment lingered, a reminder that even the brightest stars are, at the end of the day, just people with stories, dreams, and occasional moments of surprise. As the season continued, Clark's performances on the court remained as electrifying as ever, but her fans watched with a renewed sense of connection. She had been more than a player. She had been real, open, even if just for a split second. In an age of curated images and managed personas, her genuine reaction was like a breath of fresh air. For the young girls who looked up to her, it was a lesson that being strong doesn't mean being unbreakable, that sometimes the best moments come when you're caught off guard and just have to roll with it. Looking back, the interview was a small but powerful reminder of what makes sports compelling. Not just the action, the scores, or the records, but the people behind them, the moments that reveal something raw and real. Caitlin Clark had always been a force on the court, but in that one candid moment, she became something more, an athlete unafraid to be human, to be surprised, to laugh at herself even when the world was watching. And maybe that's why the moment stuck, resonating far beyond the boundaries of sports, capturing the essence of what it means to live with passion, honesty, and a touch of unpredictability. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.